Hi, Jacqueline Eckern here, founder of Eating Disorder Hope, and today I am talking about infertility and eating disorders. The CDC estimates that 12% of women between the ages of 15 and 44 struggle with becoming pregnant or carrying a pregnancy to full term in the US. And I know personally, as someone in recovery from an eating disorder, I was impacted with infertility. And it was very discouraging and frustrating. So the main point of this video is just to give you hope and encouragement, because it can feel very discouraging and disillusioning and scary to be struggling with trying to get pregnant and failing at it. And then when one is already in recovery from an eating disorder, it's pretty easy to see that, oh my goodness, I probably contributed to this problem by some of my behaviors with the eating disorder and feel guilty about that, and the whole thing can snowball. So first of all, take a deep breath and relax, because you're not alone if you're watching this and you're going through a struggle to become pregnant after having recovered from an eating disorder. There's many of us out there, and there is hope. I want you to know that I struggled for 2 years to get pregnant, and that was with an expensive, big hassle, lots of appointments, fertility clinic. And I did eventually conceive and am now the proud mama of a 12-year-old boy who's healthy. So please let that encourage you and inspire you to keep trying and have faith and hope that your body can come through for you too. Eating disorders are such a lesson consistently in life about hope, faith, maturity, making wise choices, forgiving ourselves, forgiving others. There's just so much wisdom to be gained from the eating disorder. Not that any of us would choose it. We'd rather have had a smooth sail, but there is a lot to gain from it. And I would say the same thing about the infertility issue. Having struggled with infertility taught me to be patient, to dial into my body more, to seek advice from others and grow closer to people that had struggled with it and gain insight from them. All of those were good things. So just to give you a little bit of insight of what that looked like, I do know that in my eating disorder recovery, I've definitely had to work at not seeking to be ultra thin. It's very compelling with our media saturation all the time of extremely thin women as powerful and successful and beautiful, to not think, oh, I could just be a little better if I was just a little thinner. And as somebody in recovery from an eating disorder, it's really not such an option for me. I have to work with the body I have and my genetic predisposition and that build. And I think the infertility brought that issue to a head for me. I did find that by gaining a few pounds during that struggle to become fertile, or to become pregnant, I did seem to increase my body's receptivity to pregnancy. So what that leads me to anecdotally conclude is that when I was possibly keeping my weight abnormally low for my genetic predisposition, that made it more difficult for my body to conceive. Also, a lot of us in eating disorder recovery have had convoluted menstrual cycles or long periods where there was no menstrual cycle, which is concerning on so many fronts, including our bone density, different issue. But what I want you to know is all of that can contribute, so when we force our weight to be abnormally low, when we exercise to extremes, when we calorically restrict at an unhealthy level, all of those things can play into infertility. And I think that was the case for me. So when I finally did decide that I wanted to become pregnant, it took a lot of commitment. And some of the things that I found helpful were definitely seeking out a top-level fertility clinic. and it's extremely expensive. So if that's not an option for you, there's a ton of information online and resources, and you might talk to your insurance company too about what options are available to you. But if you are fortunate enough to have coverage or the ability to go to a fertility clinic, they can be enormously helpful. Not only were they so for me, but for some of my clients in my private practice as a therapist who were struggling to get pregnant, and also friends in these cases of folks with eating disorders preceding the attempt to get pregnant. So the fertility clinic, a well-regarded, do your due diligence, research them, get their advice, follow their advice. That was super important. Second thing that was very helpful for me was to look up some fertility forum boards online. Just being able to commiserate and compare notes with other people that were going through the same struggle was comforting and helped me hold on. I do have a note of caution here, though. I think at times it could lead me to a little bit of hysteria, because I'd see some folks that had struggled for years and years and weren't succeeding and think, oh no, what if that's me? So, you have to take it, if it works for you, do it. And if it's a triggering thing, then don't look at those boards. But in my case, it was very helpful to have people to compare notes with and get ideas from. And then the other issue, the other thing that I found to be really helpful was to be more accepting of my body and to further lessen my restrictive eating habits. I'd come a long way in recovery, but there still was a tendency to restrict. And I found that when I became more relaxed around food and able to eat on a better hunger and fullness cues, my body seemed to be more receptive to pregnancy. So research shows that approximately 1 in 5 patients that go to an infertility clinic also either have an active eating disorder or have struggled with one. So it's not an uncommon thing. And some of the struggles for folks with eating disorders that face infertility is, guilt, feelings of regret over some of the choices we've made with our bodies that might have led or contributed to this infertility struggle. And I think it's super important to just remind yourself that you are doing the best you can. And you were probably doing the best you can when you were knee deep in the eating disorder. It just took time, healing, better choices, better information to get to where you are now in your recovery. And so forgiving yourself for any mistakes you made that might have had some impact on your fertility is really important, so that you're relaxed and peaceful about this process. There's so much hope. Up to 80% of women who are successfully treated for an eating disorder are able to go on and conceive.